Okay. It largely depends on the type of questions which are there on the passage. If the questions are, say, on inference-based questions, in that case, like reading questions first does not help you. If I give you a few examples, saying can or cannot be inferred from the passage, or say what point does the author make in her remark about the liability insurance, or something on this line. In this case, what happens is like if we read questions first, we are too preoccupied with finding answer which is not existing in the passage. We have to read the passage, make certain inferences, and then answer the question. Whereas if the questions are very direct, based on information given in the passage, for example, which of the following is mentioned in the passage, or one of the properties of early day scientific research was something. In such questions, what happens is like reading questions first, identifying keywords in the question, and then searching through the keywords in the passage does help. Now, if we see the examinations wise, in case of IIFT exam, most of the questions will be inference based. So will be the case in case of XAT as well. Whereas in case of CAT, after going it online, we have been finding mix of questions. Some questions are inference based, some are directly information based questions. So what can students do is like they can run a quick look at the questions, because all the questions in case of CAT appear on the screen simultaneously. Run a quick glance through the questions, see if they're inference based, then instead of reading questions can go to the passage. And if there are direct questions, then might as well pick up the keywords from the questions. Just in 2 words, it's very important. Important not because there are questions on vocabulary, but mainly because the RC passages are drawn from specific subjects. They are taken from the research journals on the subjects. So to understand those RC passages or to understand the question or paragraph completion, one does need a good understanding of vocabulary. Also, like, I mean, words tend to be, pretty subject specific words. So one has very diverse reading and thereby gain the words which can help one understand the passages and the questions in CAT exam properly. Besides, of course, like SNAP and MAT, there are exams where there are direct questions on vocabulary as well. Now, given the short time we have, right, there are certain ways that one can work on vocabulary. Conventionally, like we have been suggesting reading extensively, using dictionary whenever one knows a new word, making flashcards, or focusing on roots of the words, and taking tests. But then in the short time, if one has to gather more words, in that case, what one can do is making classified flashcards rather than general flashcards of every word that comes into that one comes across. Couple of them describing a personality, couple of them talking about the climate and weather. Then one can make two classifications, personality and weather, and keep adding words to that as one comes across. Now, what does this ensure is if ever a person finds a new word about he gets to revise all the previous words. And since they're similar kind, it becomes easy to remember those words and meanings and their usages. Also, what is important is when a student picks a word, normally like what happens is like we close the dictionary as soon as possible. We just see the meaning of the word and then close it. And immediately the next moment what happens is meaning stays in our mind, but the word evades us. This must not happen. So what we ought to be doing is when we refer to a dictionary, we should see the word, its synonyms, antonyms, its usages, various forms of the word. If we spend a little while with the word, then there is a greater probability that word would stay with us. More importantly, as far as vocabulary is concerned, one must appreciate the need for vocabulary and one must continue to work on it. There are no shortcuts as such, but then yes, there are certain ways which can help remember words better and faster. There is no definite order of the questions that one must go by. It is something that should be left to the student to explore the possibility through various mock tests by taking different order of questions at different point of time and different tests, and then evaluating that how one feels. Understand what I am saying is how one feels, the comfort level. It's not about the accuracy or attempts. If one feels more comfortable doing verbal first, then RC and then LR, then that's the best order for the student. But one point here I would like to make is do not keep grouped questions in the end of the section, at the end of the section. That is, say RC happens to be grouped questions where there are 5 questions. Similarly, logical reasoning, they are grouped questions. If a student goes for these questions in the end, what might just happen is like he has gone through the passage but did not have time to answer the questions. And that not only results in wastage of time and effort, but then a couple of wrong questions as well. So instead, for the last few minutes, one must always keep certain questions which are individually, which can be answered individually. That is verbal questions. Now, what these questions should be, that depends on the student's comfort level once again. The questions in verbal ability type, which student is least comfortable with, one can keep it for the end. Where student has been getting lower accuracy and lower attempts, and one is really not very comfortable answering those questions. Those 3-4 questions can be kept for the last few minutes, so that whatever time is available, one can utilize that. So as such, like there is no definite order of the questions. Also, one thing is like it depends on whether student is indifferent kind or an emotional kind. What I mean by that is like, say there are certain people for whom like whether they answer one question correctly or incorrectly does not reflect on the next question. Whereas there are certain people who for whom one question messed up means next question also the probability of messing up increases. Now, if that is the case, then one must pick the order where one is most comfortable to least comfortable, irrespective of everything else. If one is indifferent kind, where it does not matter to the person whether he has done previous question, if he is able to clear his mind of previous attempts and previous time spent, then any order would do as such. In that case, one can definitely think about the individual questions in the end. Yes, a very important question. While analyzing the performance in the verbal section, once again, what we do is like we stress the comfort level of the student rather than just the attempts and accuracy. Because if student is comfortable with certain type of questions, building accuracy and attempts would be easier. Student will find that easier, right? So particularly verbal section analysis should be done almost immediately after the test is completed, where person can reflect on one's thought process while attempting that question and see the solution, whether his or her thought process matched with the solution. If that matches, even if in the end person ends up getting it wrong in a mock test, would not materially affect one's preparation in the long run. So how comfortable one is. Second thing is like focus should be on type of questions. Type of question in a sense that if say I'm more comfortable answering para-jumble questions and I am not very comfortable answering paragraph completion questions. So in that case, paragraph completion is something where I need to work upon. Once again, as far as verbal section is concerned, it's always about comfort level rather than accuracy and attempts. Yeah, when it comes to quants, the case is completely different. So it should be on type of questions, and that is what helps us, as in previously I said, like helps us identify which questions we can keep in the keep for the end, right? The questions that we are not very comfortable answering, or questions that always pose us difficulty. Say particularly say grammar questions. We all know that when we rethink on a grammar question, we tend to make a correct attempt incorrect rather than an incorrect attempt correct. And questions in CAT structured on grammar are they specifically want students to rethink on every question. 4 sentences given. The options are A and D, B and C, B and D and A. I mean, where you always have to rethink on every sentence. Now, that is something that if someone is not very comfortable or very confident about it, one can keep it for the end. And those are the questions that one needs to be working more upon. Also, the focus should be on thought process and approach. Say whether one is able to analyze a given text properly or not, and whether one analyzes the options equally well or not. A common refrain from students has been So we have been able to eliminate two options, and correct answer is among the last two options. Then I end up marking incorrect one. But then why does that happen? That is mainly because we do not tend to analyze the question, options as well as we do the question or the passage. So we should minutely see the difference in the wordings of the options which we are left with, right? Now, identifying one of the two correct options or eliminating two options is not a big achievement, because two of the four options almost everyone would be able to eliminate. So do not pat your back just because you have been able to eliminate two options. It's more about picking the correct option, and that is where analysis of the options is equally important. While analyzing the attempts in mock test, one must reflect on how much time one gives to reading passage and whether the analysis is complete. Reading speed of the passage, the time invested in a passage has to correspond with the accuracy that one attains in those passages. Same is the case with logical reasoning questions which appear in the same section, that the time that you spend has to correspond with the accuracy. As far as individual questions are concerned, I mean, one can identify the comfort level also by identifying the questions which one gets correct in minimum time and question that one gets incorrect by spending maximum time. Now that would definitely be a very good indicator in order to identify areas that one is likely to do well in the exam.